for us to be there if the Iraqis are just not going to do what they need to do to take care of their own countries. So it's time to bring our troops home and to bring them home as quickly and responsibly as possible. And unfortunately, I don't see any reason why they should remain beyond, today. I think George Bush doesn't intend to bring them home, but certainly I have said when I'm president I will. Within 60 days I'll start that withdrawal.
Policy is a massive failure. Here are the measurements that we should look at. 3,900 Americans have lost their lives. There's 60,000 Americans today that are wounded, mainly mentally wounded. Tell that to the family that only 23 died in December. Look, here are the barometers that we need to look at. First, there is no military solution. There's a political solution. Secondly, has there been progress in any political compromises or reconciliation between the Sunni, the Shia, and the Kurds? Zero. Has there been progress in sharing oil revenues? Zero. Has there been any regional elections? Zero. Is the Maliki government intensifying its efforts to train the Iraqi security forces more than they have? No. Is there any end to Iran's efforts to bring terrorist activities to Iraq? No. Iran, Syria, no one has participated in a regional solution. No, Charlie, I mean, this is why I'm running for president, because until we end this war, we cannot talk about the issues that need to be dealt with here. Universal health care, improving schools, bringing people together. You can't have change until you end the war, and that means bringing all of our troops home within a year and leaving none behind.
I'm going to take this to Senator Obama and to Senator Edwards, but and I'm not here to debate, but Parliament meets, an oil law is under consideration, de-Baathification has progressed to some extent, and were it not for the surge, instead of counting votes, we'd be counting bodies in the streets.
Has been going on
and
for
all of
Charlie,
you, wanted the troops out
progress
last year.
Charlie,
would you have seen this kind of greater security in Iraq if we had followed your recommendations to pull the troops out last year, Senator Obama?
Let me respond. I think the bar of success has become so low that we've lost perspective on what should be our long-term national interests. It was a mistake to go in from the start. And that's why I opposed this war from the start. It has cost us upwards of $1 trillion. It may get close to $2 trillion. We have lost young men and women on the battlefield, and we have not made ourselves safer as a consequence. Now, I had no doubt, and I said at the time when I opposed the surge, that given how wonderfully our troops perform, if we place 30,000 more troops in there, then we would see an improvement in the security situation, and we would see a reduction in the violence. But understand, we started in 2006 with intolerable levels of violence and a dysfunctional government. We saw a spike in the violence, the surge reduced that violence, and we now are 2 years later back where we started 2 years ago. We have gone full circle at enormous cost to the American people. What we have to do is to begin a phased redeployment to send a clear signal to the Iraqi government that we are not going to be there in perpetuity. Now, we should be as careful getting out as we were careless getting in. I welcome the genuine reductions of violence that have taken place, although I would point out that much of that violence has been reduced because there was an agreement with tribes in Anbar province, Sunni tribes, who started to see, after the Democrats were elected in 2006, you know what, the Americans may be leaving soon, and we are going to be left very vulnerable to the Shias. We should start negotiating now. That's how you change behavior, and that's why I will send a clear signal to the Iraqi government. They will have ample time to get their act together, to actually pass an oil law, which they've been talking about now for years. They will actually be able to conduct de-Baathification. We will support them in all of those efforts. But what we can't do is to continue to ignore the enormous strains that this has placed on the American taxpayer, as well as the anti-American sentiment that it is fanning and the neglect that's happening in Afghanistan as a consequence.
I'm going to go to Senator Edwards, but all of you serve in Congress or did serve in Congress. You know how slow legislatures can move. You've all experienced it in the United States Congress. But Senator Edwards, let me go to you. Some of you, Governor Richardson, Senator Obama, you have talked about a timetable for withdrawal, getting all troops out by the end of 2009, 2010. If the generals in Iraq came to you as President Edwards and said, Mr. President, on January 21st, 2009, you're wrong. You can't do this. You're going to send Iraq back into the kind of chaos we had before. You going to stick with it?
It is the responsibility of the President of the United States and the Commander-in-Chief to make policy decisions. It is the responsibility, of course, I would always listen to my uniformed military leadership directly, not filtered through civilians, directly. But if you look at what happened in Iraq when the Brits began to pull their troops out, in the part of Iraq where those troops were located, there was a significant reduction in violence. What the whole purpose, just to be clear with people, the whole purpose for the surge was to create some environment where there could be political progress and political reconciliation between Sunni and Shia. Everyone believes, even George Bush acknowledges, that that's what we're trying to accomplish. The question is, how do you get there? Look at the loss of American lives, $600 billion and counting, and there's been essentially no political progress. I don't believe, and I think others would agree, that there will be political progress until we make it clear that we're going to stop propping the Sunni and Shia up with American lives and with American taxpayer dollars. So what we need to do, and let me be very specific, and this is what I will do as president. In the first year that I'm president, I will pull 40 to 50,000 troops out very quickly. I will continue a steady redeployment of combat troops out of Iraq until they are all out within about 9 to 10 months. If my military leadership says we need some more time to make sure that we can do this in the most effective way, in the most efficient way, and the safest way for my troops, of course I'd be listening to what they have to say. But I will end combat missions in Iraq in the first year, and there will be no permanent military bases. We have to end this war. And the only way to end the war is to end the occupation, which is what I will do as president.
I've got 1 minute left, and I owe each of you 30 seconds.
Well, John, you can't end the war without, you got to get all the troops out to end the war because they've become targets. And if you leave a small force behind, then you cannot bring the political reconciliation that is needed. You cannot bring a peacekeeping force by the United Nations or a donor conference to take over the $570 billion that we've spent on this war, on resources that should be spent on health care and education for our own people. This is where, with all due respect, we differ. I bring the troops back within a year. I don't want in 5 years, because I did in another debate, some of you said you would keep troops. You wouldn't say you wouldn't get them up by 2013. I don't want in 5 years to have to look at an 8-year-old today, an eighth grader, an American eighth grader today, who is serving 5 years from now in Iraq. I don't want to hear about a death of an American. As a governor, I fly the flags half-mast upon a death. I'm sick of doing that. We need to stop that. We need to think of our veterans that are coming back with PTSD, with traumatic brain injuries, with mental anguish. We have a crisis on our hands, and my whole point is that this whole campaign, everything we talk about, universal health care, improving schools, helping kids, cannot happen until we get out of this war, because the Congress and the President basically have a dysfunctional relationship where nothing gets done. And I can see that as a governor from my states as I try to deal with health care and education.
Governor.
So this is why it's so fundamental, and this is why I'm running for president, to end this war, and the way you do it is by getting all the troops out in 1 year.
I owed you 30 seconds. Now you owe me 45, but that's all right. Senator Clinton.
Well, I think we're in vigorous agreement about getting our troops home as quickly and responsibly as we possibly can, serving notice on the Maliki government that the blank check they've had from George Bush is no longer valid. We're going to have intensive diplomatic efforts in the region. I don't think anyone can predict what the consequences will be, and I think we have to be ready for whatever they might be. We have to figure out what we're going to do with the 100,000 plus American civilians who are there, working at the embassy, working for not-for-profits or American businesses. We have to figure out what we're going to do about all the Iraqis who sided with us, like the translators who helped the Marines in Fallujah.